Okay. Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, fellow educators. Good evening to you. It's evening where we are at this time in New York City. And if you're
Good evening once
calling
again,
in
ladies and
from
gentlemen.
the
Good evening.
Caribbean,
Fellow
anywhere right
educators,
across the
good
Caribbean,
evening to you.
good evening to you. Also,
New
if
York
you're calling in from the rest of the world, it's I know the time is probably different everywhere else, but I greet you. I want to say I greet you. And for those of us who are not familiar with our work or platform, welcome. My name is Dr. Dwayne Dice, and I'm the founder and CEO of Education Solutions International. Education Solutions International is a nonprofit which is based in New York City, and we offer work in the Caribbean, right across the Caribbean with the Teachers Union in different islands, as well as right across the globe. So we have partnership in America, we have partnership in England and the Middle East as well. And we do a lot of this type of workshop. You'll see across the Caribbean, and we open it up to the rest of the world, rest of the globe. So our nonprofit offers scholarship to students. We also offer grant. So if you check our website is educationsolutionsinternational.org, and you can see a wide range of support that we offer to schools, to leadership, educational leadership, as well as to students and teaching and learning in general. It's really wide across the board. And we also offer scholarships to students as well as an innovative grant. It's called the ESI, which is Education Solutions International Innovation Grant. And teachers can apply for that as well. All right, so welcome. This evening, we have on our platform, it's called the Integrated Learning Support Systems workshop. And what we're doing here is to try to help our teachers, help our students to grapple with the changes in teaching and learning challenges, and also to help them to reach their maximum potential as students. So we need to help our teachers and our support staff to reach there. And we have with us the wonderful Miss Amba Singh, and she is a director. She's actually our leading director in high school learning support, learning support systems, you can call it. And also, she's also a director of learning specialist. And she works in the Dalton School, which is an independent school in New York City, one of the prestigious New York's independent schools. Top 5 in the world, if the ranking for the Dalton School is top 5 in the world. As part of her education background, Miss Singh is a graduate of Harvard University. She completed a certificate in school management and leadership with the Education Leadership and Administration department there. She also, and that's K-12 certification in school management and leadership. She's also a graduate of Columbia, Teachers College Columbia, which is my alma mater as well. And she completed a master's degree in health and behavioral studies, learning disabilities, special area. And she also did the college advisor certification in counseling psychology at Columbia University. And before that, she did a bachelor's degree in sociology and psychology at Sarah Lawrence College. All right. And she also has a certificate in law, and she has a diploma in education, psychology, and philosophy. And of course, she has a ton more of experience and qualification. So I'm just highlighting a few accolades of her. And I am very honored to have her on our platform to share with us the learning support systems that we need to put in place for our students, as well as the support that teachers can give to other teachers to put in place to help our students right across. This is very general. It's right across the board. So anyone can tailor these learning support strategies for your own classroom, for your own school, if you're a principal, and if you're a regional director or working in the Ministry of Education, you can tailor this to suit all facet of the system. So listen carefully, learn all you can, and if you know a lot of these things already, see how best you can get more from this to fit into the systems across the board. Okay, so I'm gonna invite Miss Singh now to take over this workshop, and then back and forth. Oh, before she comes, the directions are that we drop our questions in the chat. Drop your questions in the chat, in this chat. If you're on YouTube, drop your questions in the YouTube chat, and I will get them over to Miss Singh as she go through the presentation, and she will answer them. And also, if you have a question, a very burning question, and you want to raise the question while she is going through the presentation, please remember this. Raise your hand in Zoom, and we will unmute, we'll call on you, and then you'll share your question, and we can hear your voice, okay? But you're muted now, and we'll give you unmute privileges for you to unmute yourself, and you can share your question out loud so that everybody else will benefit. If you don't really feel like talking and you want to type your question in the chat, you can do so, and we'll get the questions to her as she is presenting, okay? But remember, if you have a question and you feel like you want to raise that question, please click on the raise hand button in Zoom, and we will call on you at the opportune time, and you will ask your question with her, because she's very flexible with that. She's very approachable. Also, for those who are on YouTube, of course, you can raise your hand, but you drop your question in the chat, in the YouTube chat, and I'll get them over to Miss Singh. I know it's delayed a little bit, maybe about 20 seconds or so, but we'll get them answered for you. It's a workshop, so we want it to be very interactive. If you haven't done so yet, if you're just coming on the platform, please drop your, either on YouTube or on Zoom, drop your first and last name, your school that you're teaching in, or you're an administrator of, or a region that you're an executive of, drop that region in, and also the country that you are calling in from, okay? So those are 3 or so different things. Okay, now the recording is going to be on our website afterwards. We will not have access to it on YouTube anymore. It will be on our website, and you have access to our website, of course. And also you have access to other trainings. Now look on the website as we finish with this. There's a follow-up training to this, which talks about the MTSS system in detail. It's coming up on Thursday at the same time. And also we have promoting positive math identity in students, which is coming up next Monday, at the 20th of March at the same time. So we keep it's standard, the same time as this one. All right, so I'm going to hand over to Miss Singh now, and she's going to take us into the learning system, integrated learning systems for teachers and for aides and for everybody right across the education system. Hi, Miss Singh, welcome.
Hi, I'm just trying to share my screen.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yes, it's beautiful.
Okay. Oops. Okay. Thank you for the kind introduction.
Yes.
Dr. Dice basically, I'm jumping.
Yeah,
Dr. Dice mentioned a lot of stuff already, so I don't want to repeat that, but I have a lot of experience in special education. I've worked at charter schools, and I've worked at private independent schools at the elementary level, the middle school, as well as the high school. And a little bit about myself that Dr. Dice didn't mention is that I was born in India. I went up to high school in India, and then I came to the US and I did my bachelor's and master's. So I feel I'm like straddling 2 cultures. And I know there's lots of people over here from Jamaica and Trinidad and Guyana, and I've actually been to all 3 countries. So I do want to mention that as well. So today we're going to talk about learning disabilities. I'm just going to give you an outline of what a learning disability is, the different types of learning disabilities there are. And our specific focus today is going to be on dyslexia. So we'll go a little bit in depth into dyslexia, and then we'll have like a true and false based on what you've understood from this topic. And then the next presentation will be on how to create a learning support program in your school, which is based on my experience as well as the program we have at Dalton right now. Okay, and if people have questions, please raise your hands or put them in the chat. And I really want this to be an interactive discussion, not just me showing you slides. So I hope you all have lots of questions. And I want to kind of cater to what you need. Okay. So if a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach that the way they learn. So this for me is really very important. And in the field of special education, this is primary. Like we have to reach the child. We can't say this is our curriculum and we can't, trying to minimize my slide. We can't not, we have to figure out what the best way the child learns. So we have to understand the child's strengths, the child's weaknesses, and teach to the child's strengths. And then we will be able to remediate their weaknesses. And that's been my experience with all the students I've worked with. I always try to see what they love to do, and then using that to work with their areas of struggle. So here's a question, if you can put it in the chat. What do all these people have in common? Cher, Octavia Spencer, Richard Branson, Anderson Cooper, Whoopi Goldberg, Keira Knightley, Albert Einstein, and Pablo Picasso. Yes, very good. All these students have, all these famous celebrities have dyslexia or a learning disability. Perfect. And learning disabilities, I think the latest figure was like it impacts at least 20% of the population. So it's not something that happens rarely or impacts just a few people. This is prevalent in our society, and it's our responsibility to provide remediation to the students as early as possible through early intervention. Okay, where's my slide? Oops, okay. So this is how it feels to have a disability. So Octavia Spencer said, I was paralyzed with fear because I kept inverting words and dropping words. I didn't want to be made to feel that I was not as smart as the other kids because I know that I am a smart person. Robin Williams said, I suffer from severe dyslexia. I was the only child on my block on Halloween to go trick or trout. And people used to say, here comes that young Williams boy, better get some fish. And Cher says, I couldn't read quickly enough to get all my homework done. And for me, math was like trying to understand Sanskrit. And Albert Einstein, though as a child and teenager, Einstein showed signs of brilliance and creativity in his interests. In geometry, he also showed signs of weakness in speech and verbal development, as well as several school subjects. Nothing would become of the boy, his teachers believed. So I also want to mention, like, you all have this responsibility. You have a duty to not make any child feel that they will not be successful. We as educators have to believe in every single child. Every single child has the ability to learn. It's for us to teach them, to help them find success. And Pablo Picasso too, he said, I paint objects as I think them, not as I see them. So what is a learning disability? Learning disabilities are often genetic or neurobiological. So by neurobiological, I mean that it's a connection between the nervous system and the brain. And those factors alter brain functioning, which affects cognitive processes. And cognition is what we need when we are learning. And these processing problems can interfere with learning basic skills such as reading, writing, and math. They can also impact higher level skills such as organization, time planning, abstract reasoning, long or short-term memory, as well as attention. And it's very important to realize that learning disabilities can affect an individual's life beyond academics and can impact relationships with family, friends, and in the workplace. And it's important to not confuse learning disabilities with learning problems, which are primarily the result of visual, hearing, or motor handicaps, of intellectual disability, of emotional disturbance, or of environmental, cultural, or economic disadvantages. And it's also very important to remember that people with learning disabilities are often of average or often above average intelligence. There often appears to be a gap between the individual's potential and their actual achievement. That's why learning disabilities are referred to as hidden disabilities. You can't see them. The person looks perfectly normal and seems to be very bright and an intelligent person, yet may be unable to demonstrate the skill level needed or expected from someone of a similar age. And the last sentence, I really want you all to remember that, because I've often come up against that. A learning disability cannot be cured or fixed. It's a lifelong challenge. However, with appropriate support and intervention, people with learning disabilities can achieve success in school, at work, in relationships, and in the community. Any questions or thoughts as we read this? Okay. I can't monitor the chat, Dr. Dice, so if you can just let me know if anyone had questions. Now I'm just going to review the different types of learning disabilities. There's dysgraphia, which is a disability that affects a person's handwriting and fine motor skills. Dyscalculia is a specific learning disability that affects a person's ability to understand numbers and learn math facts. And dys is the Greek word for difficulty. So all these words in Greek would make sense, like difficulty. Lexia is reading. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that affects reading and related language-based processing skills. So we're going to focus on dyslexia, but I just wanted to give you an overview of all the other ones. Non-verbal learning disabilities. Over here, it's actually the opposite of dyslexia. Here, the student has trouble interpreting non-verbal cues like facial expressions, body language, and may have poor coordination. Often for students with non-verbal learning disabilities, comprehension is a big issue. And in dyslexics, often their comprehension is very strong. They just really struggle with reading the text. Then there's also an oral or written language disorder and specific reading comprehension deficit. So over here, the learning disabilities impact an individual's understanding of what they read or spoken language. The ability to express oneself with oral language may also be impacted. And ADHD, a lot of our students at the school I'm currently teaching at have ADHD. It's attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So a disorder that includes difficulty staying focused, paying attention, controlling behavior, and hyperactivity. And Trevor Noah has ADHD. I think recently he was on an interview where he mentioned how he manages his ADHD. Dyspraxia is a disorder which causes problems with movement and coordination, language, and speech. Executive functioning now has been combined with ADHD. So often students that struggle with time management, organization, have executive functioning issues. So usually if your attention is wavering, you'll have struggles with planning, organization, strategizing, attention to details, managing time and space. And all these learning disabilities are diagnosed by someone called a neuropsychologist. So it's not like just a teacher saying, I think this child has dyslexia, but you have to go. I'm not sure what the system in Jamaica is, if there's neuropsychologists that are doing testing, but basically in the US, you have to go to a neuropsychologist. They do cognitive tests, academic tests, and then they create a diagnosis, and that's called an evaluation. And in the evaluation are recommendations for how students can be supported, recommendations for the school as well as for the home. So now I want you to try to read the first paragraph. This is a dyslexia simulator, and this is what it feels like to be dyslexic when you're given a text to read. So if you can spend 1 or 2 minutes trying to make sense of what is written on the screen. And if you can put in the chat how you're feeling while reading this. Imagine you're in a classroom, the teacher's telling everyone to read quickly and then answer questions. Yeah, feeling confused. I'm confused too. Frustrated, good, exactly. That's how dyslexics feel every day in a classroom. And yet it's a hidden disability. Often it's undiagnosed. So the student is struggling in your classes and there's not enough support unless a teacher picks it up. You and the parent are like the first line of defense for this student. So the second paragraph explains what is written up there. And that's if you don't have dyslexia, you could read that. You can just see what the difference it is between having dyslexia and not having dyslexia. Okay, so just to repeat the definition of dyslexia, it's a learning difference that is characterized by experiencing difficulty with reading that occurs during early childhood. This reading challenge consists of having trouble developing phonemic awareness. Phonemic awareness is the ability to connect letters to sounds. So for instance, the word cat has 3 sounds, k, a, t. So you have to be able to separate the sounds, pull them together, pull them apart, and that's how reading begins. Some of the signs of dyslexia are that you read very slowly, you make a lot of mistakes while reading, you spell words incorrectly. Other examples include left-right confusion. When students are young, it takes them a long time to learn nursery rhymes. They mix the order of letters or numbers. So there's a short video. I hope it works. Dr. Dice, if you could tell me, is the sound working? Can you hear it?
No, no. You have to share the sound.
How do I do that?
Go back to where you share your PowerPoint first and click on share sound at the bottom of the screen to the left. Just share again.
Okay.
And when you're going to share, look at the bottom to the left, you will see sound and you share it at the bottom. Click on the box on it.
It says screen and then it says share. Oh, share sounds.
Yeah.
I got it. Thanks. Okay.
Take a moment to read the following. How was that? Frustrating? Slow? What were those sentences about? They're actually a simulation of the experience of dyslexia, designed to make you decode each word. Those with dyslexia experience that laborious pace every time they read. When most people think of dyslexia, they think of seeing letters and words backwards, like seeing B as D and vice versa, or they might think people with dyslexia see saw as was. The truth is, people with dyslexia see things the same way as everyone else. Dyslexia is caused by a phonological processing problem, meaning people affected by it have trouble not with seeing language, but with manipulating it. For example, if you heard the word cat and then someone asked you, remove the C, what word would you have left? At. This can be difficult for those with dyslexia. Given a word in isolation like fantastic, students with dyslexia need to break the word into parts to read it. Fan-tas-tic. Time spent decoding makes it hard to keep up with peers and gain sufficient comprehension. Spelling words phonetically like S-T-I-K for stick and F-R-E-N-S for friends is also common. These difficulties are more widespread and varied than commonly imagined. Dyslexia affects up to 1 in 5 people. It occurs on a continuum. One person might have mild dyslexia, while the next person has a profound case of it. Dyslexia also runs in families. It's common to see one family member who has trouble spelling, while another family member has severe difficulty decoding even one-syllable words like catch. The continuum and distribution of dyslexia suggest a broader principle to bear in mind as we look at how the brains of those with dyslexia process language. Neurodiversity is the idea that because all our brains show differences in structure and function, we shouldn't be so quick to label every deviation from the norm as a pathological disorder, or dismiss people living with these variations as defective. People with neurobiological variations like dyslexia, including such creative and inventive individuals as Picasso, Muhammad Ali, Whoopi Goldberg, Steven Spielberg, and Cher, clearly have every capacity to be brilliant and successful in life. So here's the special way the brains of those with dyslexia work. The brain is divided into 2 hemispheres. The left hemisphere is generally in charge of language and ultimately reading, while the right typically handles spatial activities. fMRI studies have found that the brains of those with dyslexia rely more on the right hemisphere and frontal lobe than the brains of those without it. This means when they read a word, it takes a longer trip through their brain and can get delayed in the frontal lobe. Because of this neurobiological glitch, they read with more difficulty. But those with dyslexia can physically change their brain and improve their reading. With an intensive multisensory intervention that breaks the language down and teaches the reader to decode based on syllable types and spelling rules, the brains of those with dyslexia begin using the left hemisphere more efficiently while reading, and their reading improves. The intervention works because it locates dyslexia appropriately, as a functional variation in the brain, which naturally shows all sorts of variations from one person to another. Neurodiversity emphasizes this spectrum of brain function in all humans, and suggests that to better understand the perspectives of those around us, we should try to not only see the world through their eyes, but understand it through their brains.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Trying to go to the next slide. Okay, so now let's see how much information you've got out of my presentation as well as that short video. What do you think is the answer to this? Is this true or false? Dyslexia is a visual problem. Its hallmark is the reversal of letters and numbers, as in B versus D. You can put it in the chat. Do you think dyslexia is a visual problem? Good. Okay, let me go to the next slide.
Ms. Singh,
Yeah.
there's a question here. I don't know. Debbie, do you want to unmute? Do you want to? Because we could get you to ask your question. Debbie Watson, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Good evening to you.
Good evening.
I'm just wondering, for children who were diagnosed with dyslexia or a learning disability, say between the ages of 6 years and earlier, can they get better over time, or it goes through their lifetime, or what is happening? Do intervention helps them, or how do they get better over time?
That's a great question. Thank you. So they definitely get better over time. It doesn't get cured. So they'll always have dyslexia. But if they're getting support and intervention and being taught strategies about how to read, how to break up multisyllabic words, for instance, build their vocabulary, get practice in reading fluency, they will manage as well with the other students. And if they get accommodations, often extra time accommodations is really helpful for students with disability, with language-based learning disabilities, because they need more time to read. But I've worked with lots of students that had quite severe dyslexia, and once they had good intervention and supports, they were going to regular colleges and have been very successful. Thank you for your question. So going back to the PowerPoint, is dyslexia a visual problem? That's false, and a lot of you said that. So great, you all have been listening and taking good notes and watching the videos. So dyslexia is primarily an issue of phonological processing, or the ability of speech or spoken language. Students with dyslexia might have difficulty reading because they struggle to match letters with sounds. Just trying to move this a little bit so I can see sounds those letters make. Okay, next question. True or false, students with dyslexia will never be able to read on grade level? Good. So a lot of you said false. Students with dyslexia may have difficulty with fluency. So fluency is the ability to read accurately and clearly. But these students can succeed across academic subjects with early intervention, targeted supports, and a flexible curriculum. So targeted supports means really honing in on what they need and then providing those supports to them. Some clues and signs of dyslexia may emerge before children start school. It's crucial to identify potential reading problems early rather than waiting for children to fail. Early identification of reading difficulties is critical to provide students the support they need to close the gaps. So I can't emphasize how important this is. I was at a school before I got to Dalton where they kept saying that it's all developmental, the student will just grow out of it. So some things are developmental, like in kindergarten, if students are reversing B and D, that's quite normal. But if, like I had mentioned earlier, if they're struggling with rhyming words, remembering nursery rhymes, having speech and language issues, that's a red flag. So try to provide intervention as early as possible. And also, like, the later the intervention is provided, then social and behavioral issues come into play, because then the student is so frustrated that they start acting out in class. So this is similar to my last point, just a question of more time. Students with dyslexia just need more time to learn to read. And this is a very common belief that people have. It's just a question of more time. But it's actually very inaccurate. This is another myth that it's just developmental, they'll grow out of it. So it may take students with dyslexia more time to learn to read, but this time must be spent in high quality research-based instruction. Washington University study showed that 8 weeks of specialized instruction strengthened the neural circuitry in the brain and improved reading performance. So it will take them longer to read, but you have to use that time to give them really high quality instruction. Does anyone have any questions about the developmental And I really want us to move away from the wait to fail model, because a lot of our schools have this, like when the child is struggling in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, then we start providing interventions. I really want us to start thinking ahead, like even in preschool, if the students are struggling, let's get them the supports then. Let's get them the speech and language that they need, speech and language therapy. Start with a tutor if they need to, even like learning rhyming words. As early as possible. So does reading slowly mean you're thinking slowly? True or false? People with dyslexia read more slowly, so they think more slowly. What do you all think? Does it take them longer to think or just to read? Yep, right. So thinking does not slow down. Dyslexia has nothing to do with a student's ability to think quickly or creatively. It has nothing to do with intelligence. Dyslexia can affect students who are struggling, performing on grade level, more advanced, or anywhere in between. Some of my brightest students that I work with have dyslexia. Like even if they're unable to read the passage, they can answer comprehension questions, which was just amazing to me. I was like, you're not being able to read, but you're able to understand the gist of it and make some really fantastic connections. So it's got nothing to do with intelligence, and your thinking is not slowing down. You're actually often thinking out of the box. And there's a lot of talk now of dyslexia being a gift because it helps you think differently. True or false, different curricular materials. Students with dyslexia can succeed using the same text and curricula as their classmates. So do you think they need their own different curriculum, or can they be in a classroom learning with everyone else using the same materials? So yes, they need similar curricular materials, but with proper differentiated supports for those with dyslexia and those who show signs of it. Everyone in your class can share the same materials and develop into a well-read learning community. I see a hand raised. Alvin Walker, I think. Please ask your question.
You can unmute and ask. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
Right, so I've been listening keenly. There's a student that I have in grade 6. Okay, so I realize that she reverses letters, B, D, most of those letters, you know, P and 9. Yeah.
W and M.
But I've never seen W and M. But right, but I've seen those. But I have also, I realized that sometimes she's writing and she tends to miss or omit letters. Right? So she doesn't copy things very well from either the board or from text. But very smart, very intelligent, speaks very well, very fluent in speech and everything. But just those reversals and omissions or of letters and so forth. So I was wondering, she actually was assessed for dyslexia, but then she was not really identified as being dyslexic.
Was her vision checked? Does she wear glasses?
No, she doesn't wear glasses.
Okay. Because at this age to reverse is quite unusual.
Based on but right. I don't know. I don't know if it's a visual issue. I would have spoken to her mother regarding that, but that has not yet been done after all these years. But the thing about it though, I don't know if it's a visual issue because the thing about it, she reads fluently, and when she's reading, B and D doesn't confuse her, but when she's writing, it does. So I'm wondering.
Yeah, very interesting. Because I would also read B and D wrong, because often it's boy and dog. They're getting confused while reading that. Or it could be
Mhm.
dysgraphia, like a writing issue.
Okay.
But she's in 6th grade, and if it's just reversals and nothing else, like she can write complete sentences, paragraphs, essays without a problem, or is she struggling with the output in writing?
No, she writes. Well, her expressions are good, but just in terms of the spelling, a lot of spelling errors, and so on. But
Yeah,
otherwise,
spelling is
she's
usually
okay.
a sign of dyslexia, and maybe the evaluator didn't see it as like meeting diagnostic criteria. Maybe it wasn't like, it's a spectrum. So maybe he didn't see other aspects to diagnose. It could be like a very low level of dyslexia rather than just being diagnosed with dyslexia, just on the spectrum.
Okay.
But maybe she should use a computer, use spell check. I think those things really help students these days with dyslexia. But yeah, I mean, maybe she should like.
Breaking up. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not a neuropsychologist, but I'm just telling you the little
I
bit
think
that I
my
know
internet is actually.
as an educational person in the field of education. But definitely reversals. And you're saying her spelling is poor too. It's not just reversals.
Pardon, I didn't get that. I'm sorry.
Is it just reversal of letters, or is it poor spelling as well?
So there is poor spelling and reversal of letters. So her spelling is terrible, right? But
Okay.
right. You can, whenever she spells words, you can pretty much figure out what she's saying, right?
Yeah.
But right. But so in terms of, she spells the word just like she says them, right?
So phonetically.
Right.
So she hasn't learned the spelling rules, or hasn't incorporated them into her spelling.
That's right. So in my estimation, sometimes so the words are written in front of her perfectly correct, right? But
Mm-hmm.
yet she spells them incorrectly. And I'm thinking, what the words are in front of you? They are clearly written, and you make the errors, the error of missing letters or missing, letter or letters. So so in my mind, I thought, that she was really, really, dyslexic or something. But
Yeah, she seems like she is. It would be interesting to talk to her mom to see earlier on how she was with reading in the younger grades.
right, the thing is, I taught her in grade 2, and I realized that she had an issue with those letters that I mentioned, the B.
The B and the
Right,
D.
B and the D, the P and 9, and so on. So what I used to do, I used to like write the 9 and the P, on and paste them on our desk so she can, and so forth. And the same thing with the D and B, and so forth. And but in spite of them being there, she still makes a mistake. But the thing is, if it is that she comes to me and I say to her, well, this look at this letter that you have written here. You say, oh, and she go and correct it.
Also, I use this with some of my students. So like you make a fist, and this is a B and this is a D.
Right.
And this spells boy. So B-O-Y, board. You show this is the B and this is the D. Sometimes the hand helps, but it certainly seems to me that there is either like a visual issue or like a low level of dyslexia for spelling.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for your
All
question.
right. Sure. Thank you too. Yours.
Okay, so now we come to the important part, which is how can teachers help, which is what all of you are doing already. So I really encourage the use of audiobooks and speech-to-text software. That's like a game changer. On Google now, you can it can read to you. And the Chrome has some extensions. There's also Google Read and Write, which can read text to you. And audiobooks are a game changer. I had a student who was very dyslexic, and she always listened to audiobooks, and she had the book in front of her. So she was following along, but she was listening to the audiobook. And also the student had used speech to text software. So when she wanted to write an essay, she had her phone and she would speak into her phone. And that really helped her get her ideas down. And then I would help her with her spelling, punctuation, and grammar. The other thing is provide really explicit directions using visual as well as verbal formats. Often teachers just at the end of class quickly give homework and they just say it. Students with dyslexia benefit from visual as well as verbal. Help students create a checklist. If you're giving them multiple assignments with due dates, this helps them break down big assignments and prioritize what they need to do. Also, lots of students with dyslexia also often have ADHD or dysgraphia or dyscalculia. So it's helpful to provide checklists for multiple assignments with due dates. Another very important thing is allow for multiple modes of assessments. It's not fair in school that if someone is struggling with reading and writing, that we are just always assessing them using reading and writing. Sometimes an oral project, in some classes, I've just asked them to tell me the answers. Another teacher has done an art project instead of asking them to write an essay. So you can use your imagination and give them multiple ways of expressing themselves, not necessarily just writing everything out. This is for the higher grades. Provide a lecture PDF before class. Often students with dysgraphia and dyslexia struggle with listening to the information and taking the notes at the same time. So if they have an outline of your lecture, they can write down next to it maybe the important points. And often I used to have a note taker that could share notes with students or allow a student to record a lecture. I know some teachers don't like lectures being recorded, but having a note taker is really helpful for students with dysgraphia as well as dyslexia. With dysgraphia, we often recommend use of a computer so they can type rather than having to handwrite, because handwriting is a big challenge for students with dysgraphia. This is a good teaching strategy for all students, not just students with dyslexia, but recap your previous lesson and summarize the information that will be discussed for the day. Help students link previous information with new information. So this will help them retrieve what they studied yesterday and then help them put it together. So you have to kind of create the structure for them to make the connections. Often our teaching is we're just expecting them to make the connections, and students with learning challenges need more explicit help. Another method that's helpful is define the key terms before starting a lesson and encourage students to keep a vocabulary notebook. So often students that have learning challenges don't have a great vocabulary because since they've struggled with reading, they don't want to read that much. So their vocabulary, it's all connected. So the better reader you are, the more you want to read. Therefore, your vocabulary is better. You're better at writing. And if you're struggling with reading, you don't read, your vocabulary is not built up, and you struggle with writing. And lastly, most important, emotional support and encouragement is the key to helping your students succeed. School is, as you saw, even trying to read that simulation, school is especially challenging for students with dyslexia. And students are often coming to me telling me, oh, this teacher doesn't like me, this teacher thinks I'm dumb. So I think all of us have to make our children feel that they can be successful and that we love them and that we care for them. And that really makes an impact in their learning. Okay, I was going to talk about universal design for learning, but I think maybe that can be another presentation. If you all have questions, please ask them, and I'm going to move to the next presentation. I'm going to stop sharing this one.
Yeah, you can move right into the next one.
Okay.
Yeah. That's very good, very good. If you have any questions as Ms. Singh transition, if you have any questions, guys, raise your hand in Zoom or drop your question in the chat and we'll get them answered as soon as possible. Okay, please raise your hand in Zoom or drop them in the chat. For those who are on YouTube, we are not forgetting you. Drop your questions in the chat on YouTube as well, and we will get them answered. I think we're going to dwell on this for about 25 minutes, and then we get some question and answer and some announcements for what workshops are coming up this week and next week. And then you're free to go. Okay, Mr.
Okay, so should I just go to the next one?
Yes.
Okay, so this is setting up a comprehensive and equitable learning support program, K through 12. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how our program is set up. So this is a logo that we created for our program. We're at the Dalton School. This was the high school learning support. And this is how we want students to see us: welcoming, independent, supportive, safe space, learning skills, friendly, goal setting, motivating. So our branding was, we want to have easy access to resources for the students. Our vision for learning support is to level the playing field. Our strategy is to reach all students that need support. So our program is kind of unique. We have resources at our school. So we have enough learning specialists to meet the needs of all the students that need support, not just the ones that have learning challenges. And our mission is to meet students where they are on their education journey. We've also started a student group because I really feel like when students, 11th and 12th grade students, talk to younger students, that is miraculous, and the kids listen more than they listen to us. So we have a Learn to Learn program, which is a program that has guides, student guides in 11th and 12th grade, and they work with students in 8th grade, 9th grade, and 10th grade. And often the students in our Learn to Learn program, the ones who are guides, have had learning challenges, and they've kind of learned strategies, and they want to give back to the younger students to maybe make it easier for the younger students to figure out how to access support, and also for removing the stigma around learning support in our school. So I'm very excited. This is a brand new program. So what is learning support? Learning support is resources, strategies, and practices that provide physical, social, emotional, and intellectual supports intended to enable all students to have an equal opportunity. We also address success at school by addressing barriers to and promoting engagement in learning and teaching. Just as efforts to enhance instruction emphasize well-delineated and integrated curriculum content, so must efforts to address external and internal factors that interfere with the students engaging effectively with that curriculum. So we basically want to reduce the barriers, take away the barriers for access to the curriculum. At most schools, currently learning supports are not well designed. At least the schools that I have worked in the past, it seems like there's just one person trying to manage a huge program. I would love to hear what your programs look like in the Caribbean. Quickly about the special education process. This is in public schools, so a referral is made either by the family or by the school in consultation with the parents. An evaluation is written up. So evaluation is sometimes done by the Board of Education, and I'm sorry to say those evaluations are not very comprehensive and very basic, and often they say there's no issue with the student. Private evaluations are better, but they're very costly. But our school pays for evaluations for students that cannot afford it. And then eligibility is determined. So if the student does have a learning disability, then a learning plan is created. In a learning plan, we have recommendations, the strengths of the student, the weakness of the student, and it's kind of a plan for the teacher to create, like these are the supports the student needs for remedial needs, as well as accommodations. Placement in our school, everyone is in a general education class, but in public schools, there might be placements in a special ed classroom. And then there's instruction, and then this is annually reviewed. So here's a little bit about placement. The most restrictive is a hospital or homebound setting, followed by special education schools or a special education classroom in an inclusive school. And the least restrictive, which is my hope that lots of students can have this opportunity, is just general education with supports in the classroom. And the support could be a co-teacher, it could be accommodations, it could be coming out and getting support for one period. So I know you're going to, there's going to be another talk on tiers, but I just quickly will tell you, this is a little bit what the public school does. There's tier 1 instruction, which is for 80% of the students, that they might have some challenges or frustration at times, but they can quickly overcome these difficulties with little impact to their overall academic performance. Tier 2 is targeted intervention for specific groups of students, 6 to 15%, and it can take as long as 8 weeks before academic improvement is noticeable. And then tier 3 is more intensive support, and this is students that have gone through a formal educational or academic evaluation. And then also MTSS, this is just an umbrella term, and I know you're going to have a speaker that's going to come talk more specifically. But basically, this is what a classroom looks like. There's struggling readers, there's weak readers, there's students on grade level and above grade level. And this is a little bit about the content that would be helpful for them. So the struggling readers would need significant intervention time and small group instruction. I think small group instruction is actually the key. In our school, we have a lot of small groups rather than one-on-one. Having 3 or 4 students work with a learning specialist is very helpful. And the students learn from each other at that time as well. And then the weaker students can get some support, smaller size classes, and you target the weak areas. Grade level, reading and writing embedded in content instruction, and advanced need advanced challenging reading and writing embedded in content instruction. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but you could also use behavior systems using the tiered support. Okay, and now I'll just go over, review how our program is set up. And please, if you have questions, if you want to know more, I'm happy to talk, give you specific details. Okay, so we have a guidance team. So our program is divided into 3 divisions. There's the kindergarten to 3rd grade, which is called our first program. We have a guidance team over there. And the guidance team is the elementary director, the dean of students, the psychologist, and we have 4 reading specialists and 4 math specialists. And I believe there's 120 students per class. So students that are struggling, there's a discussion with the guidance team, and they can go into small reading groups. And often they're pulled out, or there's push in where the teacher where a learning specialist co-teaches with the head teacher. There's screenings done for speech and language and OT, and it's conducted in kindergarten, 1st grade and 2nd grade. I think it's not all 3 grades. I think it's just kindergarten. And if there's concerns, then there's a recommendation for outside speech and language or OT. There's weekly guidance meetings for students of concern, and evaluations are recommended by 3rd or 4th grade if there's concern. So they're given a lot of tier 3 support in kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade, and then they get an evaluation by 3rd grade.
Yeah, missing. There's one question here.
Okay.
Thureen, Chambers, do you want to unmute and ask your question? Can unmute, ask your question, please. Go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
My question is, what if you have a situation where you know that the child needs special attention, but the parents are in denial. And whenever you do give that child like different work from the others, they're saying that, no, this child is capable of doing the other work like the others, when you know that is not so. So what do you do in that instance?
That's a great question. And I often have to deal with that issue. And often parents blame you, like it's, your personal fault that you are saying that their child has an issue. I think one has to understand how the parent is feeling, and you need to support the parent. And I often say, like, I would love to know how I learn best, and an evaluation is really helpful to tell me that information. I try to sell it to the family that this information would be helpful for you to have in order to support your child. And I know it's very hard, and some parents agree to it, and some parents are just like, you have no idea what you're talking about. How dare you say that? So I think there's both types of parents, and it is challenging. You have to get the trust of the parents. And I think often parents are frustrated when at the end of the year, the teacher tells them, oh, I think your child has an issue. So I think good communication is essential. So maybe in September, when you're doing your assessments and you're noticing something, like, let the parent know that I'm noticing something, I have some concerns, and then keep that dialogue going. Have the parents on your side and trusting. And I feel once the parents trust you, half the battle is won. So trust, communication, and assessments where you're actually showing them, like, I've done this assessment, this is what I am seeing, and this is what I recommend you do at home. And if it doesn't work, then this is what I would recommend. So I hear you. Thank you for your question. Parents are a big part, and I have parents that are very supportive and, go out, get the evaluation, get the remediation, get the supports, and other parents who are like, you're wrong, you have no idea what you're saying. So I think it's trying to figure out, like, some parents will listen to you, some parents will not. But from your side, you need to be communicating with them constantly, not at the end of the year. And doing assessments and sharing the feedback, saying, this is what I am seeing. And I think have a team, like that's why we have a guidance team. So it's not just coming from the teacher. We have the head of the school, we have the dean of students, we have the psychologist, we have reading specialists, all saying this, and the classroom teacher, all saying the same thing. I don't know if that's helpful, but. Okay, should I move on, or do you have a follow-up?
Yes, yeah, you can move on.
Move on, okay. Okay, so our middle school goes from 4th to 8th grade. We have our guidance team is composed of the middle school director, the middle school dean of students, the psychologists, the learning specialists. We have 4 reading specialists, and I think we have 2 math specialists. And the math specialists work closely with the math department. We have something called English workshop. When we are noticing that students are struggling with, reading and writing English, we don't want to put them in another language. In our school, students have the option of learning, I think it's French, Spanish, Mandarin, right? Dr. Dice, is there another one? French, Spanish, Mandarin?
Yeah, Latin.
Latin. So we recommend to the families that maybe they should be in English workshop when the language classes are going on. So in a way, they're getting a language waiver to work on fundamental skills in English. And we also have an after-school program called Homework Haven, which is proctored by reading and math specialists. So this is a time for students to get their homework done, and it's free of charge, and it's proctored by our reading and math specialists. And apparently it's very popular. We have students, I think 30 or 40 students a day, and parents love it because then kids can come home with all their homework done. Mm-hmm. So in the middle school, there's the push-in, the pull-out, and the co-teaching model, all 3. And when the students are working one-on-one, they're working on study skills, organization, and content. Okay, and then there is conferences to decide accommodations and remediation. So we have parent conferences. Once we get the evaluation, we have the evaluator come talk to the teachers of the student, the house advisors, and then we decide. The evaluation has the accommodations that the student needs, and then we decide as a school what accommodations we can meet, and what the remedial needs are, and what we can, our reading specialists and math specialists can do, or if the student needs outside tutoring. And there is also standardized testing that happens in grades 4, 5, 6, and 7. That's organized by the school. High school is 9 through 12. Our guidance team is the high school director, the dean of students, the assistant dean, psychologists, as well as myself, the director of learning support, and the school nurse also comes. And we're also deciding at this time what accommodations we can meet, which students there are of concern, and what learning plans we can make for students that are struggling. And especially since during COVID and after the COVID pandemic, there have been a lot of students who are struggling emotionally. We have a lot of anxiety, depression, school avoidance, pretty serious emotional issues. Our department consists of 4 learning specialists that focus on academic areas. So we have a math person, a history person, an English person, a science person. All the 4 of them focus also on time management, organization, study skills, and provide subject-specific content area. We work on accommodations, we create learning plans, we share official updates with the teachers and house advisors of the students that we are working with. At this time in high school, the students are also doing the ACT and the SAT, so those accommodations our department does. We have a high school testing center. If students need a separate location, then they test with us. Students with test anxiety often fall in that category. There's 4 levels of support for students in the high school. There's primarily, it's their teacher. Each department offers a skill lab. So if students are studying, for instance, factoring, and teachers are noticing, they don't really have their factoring skills, they'll offer a once-a-week lab just on that specific skill that they're noticing the kids are not so strong at. And then it's the learning support team that works with the students. We also have peer tutors that work with students. And a lot of students, in spite of that, have private tutors. We provide orientation for families for all 9th graders. We ask them all to come to one lab. So lab in our school means a one-on-one session with the teachers. We collaborate with the middle school learning support specialists and the middle school psychologists to get to know the students that need support in 9th grade. So we get to know the 8th graders. We also offered a study skills workshop for 9th grade students. Some of the challenges we have, it's a huge school. We have, Jamaican, in the Caribbean, it might not be that big, but it's like one of the largest schools. We have 1,300 students, K through 12. So it's some of the challenges that we face are, there's departmental silos and divisional silos. And we would like to have more interactions with elementary, middle, psychologists as well as learning support specialists. We want to be able to provide more professional development on skills and strategies for teaching students with executive function, learning disabilities, ADHD, language processing, stress, anxiety, depression, and autism. And also the most important thing is, a lot of us have all this information, but how to share information about students with teachers so teachers can more effectively support them. So that's a big challenge. We're trying to figure out what the best way is to share this information where it's not too overwhelming for teachers, and at the same time, they have an understanding of the student. I'm not going to read this out, but this is the Learn to Learn program that we've started, and it was started by an 11th grade student. So it basically it's a program that connects students with a full range of resources. And it's a team of student guides who all students can approach one-on-one for guidance, help students find resources, organize their work, and help them in reaching their goals. This is an example of a learning plan that I've created. So once we get an evaluation, we create a learning plan which doesn't include a diagnosis, but this is for teachers. So we really want our teachers to know what are the areas of challenge for a student, what are the areas of strength, and what are the recommendations for classroom support. Okay, and then our school is very tech savvy. We write weekly reports about how each student is doing that's working with us. This is an example of a note written by a learning specialist for a 4th grade student. So it's quite detailed, and anytime a teacher wants to know how a student is doing, how they're doing in learning support, for instance, there'll be these weekly updates. This is a high school note for a 9th grade student, written by their learning support specialist. This is a 10th grade note. And this is response to intervention in MTSS, which I think I'll leave for the next presenter.
On Thursday.
On Thursday, yeah. So any questions? I know we've gone over time, but.
Are there any questions or comment you want to raise your hand or drop in the chat? Preferably raise your hand, you can share, we can hear your voice.
Or any information you think would be helpful for next time. Or any particular challenges you all are having. Oh, I see 2 hands up.
All right, yeah, let's take these. Trina Headley, go ahead, please. And then Pernet.
Hi, good evening, colleagues.
Good evening.
Yes, I've really been enjoying the presentation. Question, is there an optimal model for providing learning support? I've been doing some reading lately, and there's a push towards more inclusive models. Should we be looking at that, or is there still a lot of value in having a self-contained program where we do pullouts?
Thank you for the question. That's a great question. And yes, I think you're right. The push is towards a more inclusive model, and for the co-teacher or for the learning specialist to be in the classroom so they could actually support other students as well, and for students not to feel singled out. We have a big problem with stigma. The kids all know who's being pulled out, who's getting the special services. And students learn a lot from each other, not just from the one-on-one pull-out. So I would say either have a small group instruction, or try to push into the classroom as much as possible. And don't pull out kids from like their favorite activities. Often kids are pulled out at recess, during art class, during sports. Those kids need those movement activities. So more focused to be inside the classroom to support the students with the ideas of universal design for learning, which the basic idea of universal design for learning is that what benefits students with disabilities actually benefits the entire class often.
All right, thank you. Pernet, you can unmute and ask your question.
Okay, I was going to ask about there are 3 strategies that she spoke about. She spoke about the push in, pull out, and the co-teaching. But I was wondering how do we do the push in? But I just heard it was explained a while ago.
Okay.
And I think I love that part, because at my school, when we have the pull outs, some of the students, especially the bigger ones, they are not so keen and want to come for the pull-out session because they think they are being ridiculed at that time. So I really love the push-in part of it.
Yeah, or the other model is like in our high school, we don't push into the classroom, but there are enough free periods in the day for students to set up appointments with our learning specialists. So there's often like 1 or 2 free periods in the day, which is set aside for meetings with teachers. And we have students coming in, often self-referred, often sometimes referred by their teachers for additional support. But that is another way. But like pulling them out in high school is very embarrassing for the students. So we want to really move away from that model.
Okay, all right. Anyone else? Raise your hand, question, comments. All right, I think this is it. Thank you so much, Miss Amba Singh, a specialist in our area with the learning support and learning specialist supervision and implementation strategies. I want to personally thank you publicly. And I enjoyed the presentation as well because it reminded me of what I used to do, especially when I was working in Florida. I had the 3 models, which is the push-in and the pull-out and the co-teaching model with teachers when I was teaching math and science. And it worked well with especially our students who suffer from dyslexia. And other learning disabilities as well. It also helped with behavioral problems too, because some of these students have behavioral problems when they get frustrated. And some people say they're short fuse students because they get frustrated when they're not getting something right away. So yeah. And in the Caribbean, we really have to, I grew up in Jamaica, so I'm talking to Caribbean people now. We really need to change the mindset of how we look on students and who we punish and who we try to help, because sometimes it's a learning disability that leads to the behavioral problem and not the other way around. A behavioral problem does not lead to learning disability. So we need to cater for the disability, to fix it, to try and maybe not fix it, but remedy. As you said, Miss Singh, that you don't really get rid of dyslexia. You actually learn to live with it and cope with it. All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And it was lovely to meet all of you. And I hope I get to see you all sometime somewhere. And if you all want like another presentation on another topic, I'm happy to talk to Dr. Dice and prepare something for you all. Thank you so much.
Yes. So everyone, please remember that on Thursday, this Thursday, we have the part 2 of this one. And Miss Singh did a wonderful job in opening the doors to talk about learning support systems. And on Thursday, we're going to look into the MTSS system, which is the leveled support. So that one is very popular in the US and in other regions, in overseas like Europe and so on. In the Middle East, is very popular with helping students to cope with the behavioral problems, but learning problems in the school. Also, so that's on Thursday, same time as this one. Please do try to come on early, 6 o'clock Eastern time. 6 o'clock Eastern time. You can Google it and find out what time is that in your area. Also on Monday, I will be one of the presenters in the promoting positive math identity. And that one is going to be the same time, 6 p.m. Eastern time, on our network, Education Solutions International. For those of you who are brand new to our network, many of you are not. Some of you are brand new. We do professional development training and workshops right across the Caribbean and the rest of the world. We cater a lot. We give a lot of energy to the Caribbean because that's where I'm from. And I want to make sure that our people are taken care of. And I also partner with other people. For example, Miss Singh is working in a school that I work in, the Dalton School. She's director of learning support. And I partner with her. She grew up in India and she came to the US just like me, grew up in Jamaica and came to the US and work. And we're still giving back. She's giving back to India. And we'll share this presentation with India as well so that they can learn from this, from her, a woman of the soil of India. And then we will have other workshops coming up as we go along. So it's a yearly thing. If you want to find out how to reach us and to be a partner in this, become a member of Education Solutions International on the website, educationsolutionsinternational.org. Or if you want to Google it, Education Solutions International, you can Google it, ESI, and you'll find us probably top of the Google search because we're very popular where Google is concerned. And then you can see a lot of things that we're doing on our platform. I also host, come to think of it, in exactly 30 minutes from now, which is 8 p.m. Eastern time, is Edu Talk. And it's where I interview people from right across the globe, different people, to talk about different issues in education. This month is Women's History Month. So we'll be talking about social and the roles, the traditional roles and social roles, which is a transformation of women over the number of years. That's our feature. And we have other shows too that I've done for over the years. I've been doing it every Tuesday. All right, so stay tuned. If you have not signed up for those courses yet, the workshops on Thursday and on Monday, please go on our website. You have a link on there, sign up, and you'll get access, the Zoom and the YouTube link to come on the platform. That's how you get access if you sign up. Another thing, very, very importantly, and lastly for this evening, you will get a survey. We always do a survey at the end of the sessions. You'll get a survey. When you fill out that survey, you respond. And a lot of what Ms. Singh said a while ago, like other workshops that you want to do, it's one of the questions on the survey. So think about your student population and respond to the survey. As soon as you respond to the survey, you will get a certificate of attendance for this presentation, okay? And so you will have that to show to your region. We have a very good relationship with the union, the teachers union in the Caribbean. So if you tell them that you get the survey, this certificate from Education Solutions International, and you mention our names, then they will accept it as something worthwhile in your system because we have a wonderful relationship with them. So we're still working on the relationship with other education systems across the world to make sure that we become legitimate, what do you call it, partners in that. But for the entire Caribbean, we are totally fine, and you can use it as professional development to build your reputation as an educator. Okay, so look for this survey, and then after the survey, you'll get a certification, because we have to cover our bases. Okay, no, go on our website, educationsolutionsinternational.org, educationsolutionsinternational.org, and you have everything else on there. You can contact us. All right, guys, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you for your support and your membership. And we will see you in the next workshop on Thursday and on Monday. And if you want to go on our YouTube channel, watch Edu Talk in 27 minutes from now, okay, on our YouTube channel. Bye, everybody. Take care. And thank you so much, Ms. Singh, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.